Today I'm going to teach you how to make your own glue-on eyes in any size and any color and any thickness that you want in order to make your flies a little more lifelike. At least it seems that way to most of us because we like to stick eyes on your fly. I cut those about 1 millimeter thick. You can also glue them on dumbbell eyes like this one. So it's just one of my homemade dumbbells. You can watch one of my other videos about how to make those. But you can glue eyes on there. You can even glue them on flies that you have already made previously that are, say, a bead head. So here's a bead head fly. And you can glue an eye right on the side of those. You can even cake up glue on the surface of the eye in order to give it that bubbled out fisheye look. Okay, let's get started. So you're going to need a couple of items, and they're not very expensive. You're going to need a thermoset polymer acrylic. If you just look up polymer clay online, you'll find several brands. These are Sculpey 3. Very affordable, like $2.50 each. I have black and I have white. So we're going to start with that today. We need to roll out the clay. And to do that, I'm going to cheat a little bit and I'm going to use a pasta roller. I've been doing this for some time and I found a pasta roller is very helpful. So it comes in a little block like this. It's pretty soft. And what you want to do is mush down a leading edge to help it go in to the pasta roller. Otherwise it's a big square and it wants to just sort of tear it apart. So make a leading edge, and I have it on the most open setting, the widest. It's number 1 on this pasta roller. So you kind of push it down a little bit, kind of keep some pressure on it. And we're gonna roll it down. All right, you get a sheet like this. Very uniform. I think you can quickly see how that beats rolling it out with a rolling pin or just patty cake smashing it down. There's that. Now I'm going to do the white. So these clays are sticky and they tend to want to stick to the roller, so it's a good idea to wipe these rollers off between colors. Okay, so I'm going to stick the white one in there and I'll do the very same thing. Just mush down the edge. And there will be some residual color that sticks to the outside, and it's not a big deal. So I'll make my point, put it in there. Okay, so I got my sheet of white. All right, so some of the black I don't need in a sheet. I actually need it in a rolled up rod. So I'm going to roll up some of this. I'm going to start with maybe this thick. Why not? Right there. I'm going to mush that up so we don't have any air bubbles, because an air bubble will cause a little gap and a pocket in it. So roll up the clay. The warmth of your hands helps it stay pliable as well. So roll this out. You can roll it straight on your table. I'm using a cutting board because it makes the cleanup a little bit easier. So try to roll it out fairly evenly. Okay, that. Then I'm going to wrap it in the white. I'm going to cut it. You can use a one-sided razor blade. This happens to be a scraper blade from a paint scraper. You can get it at a paint store. I like them because you can cut down straight through a whole bunch of material and get a nice long clean cut. So what I'm going to do is kind of tack this down to this white. Then I'm going to roll it over. And then I'm going to make it touch. And when I pull it back, maybe you can see it, maybe you can't see it, but it leaves a mark where this leading edge touched there. And that kind of gives me a clue where I should cut in order to make it line up right. So hopefully I did it right. There. You don't want to overshoot and you don't want to undershoot, because then you get an uneven spot. You want to get a nice even amount of white on all sides. You can make 2 layers of this if you'd like a really small black center for the eye, or you can just do 1 layer. Again, whatever suits you. So now you may remember from the eye I showed you that there's also black on the outside. That isn't necessarily something that has to be there, but I like the clean finished look of a black exterior on the outside of the eye, so I wrap it in black again. So I don't use the same thickness of black because I would like it thinner than the layer of white. So what I'm going to do is make this layer of black even thinner. And this is where a pasta machine is just magic. So that's on setting 1. I can turn this down to, let's say, setting 5. And then when I run this through there again, it comes out a very thin sheet. So once again, I'm going to cut this even. That. And I'm going to do the same technique again. I'm going to wrap it here. And then when it touches, maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. There's a little line. And then I cut it right at that line. All right. So I got a little bit of white. If this happens to you and you get a little tiny fleck of a color you don't want, you can scrape it off. Again, that's part of the importance of keeping a clean work area. So I'll wipe some of this off of here to make sure. So now what I'm going to do is roll this out. At first, I'm going to leave it all together like this when I roll it. Use light pressure and work your way across. Try to roll evenly. If you roll unevenly, it will stretch unevenly and the center will not be consistent with it. You can also, when you roll, open up your fingers, and that helps improve the stretch, like that. All right, so now that I've gotten this out a fair distance, I'm gonna cut it so you can see what it looks like. So, if I cut off the end, and I'm gonna roll cut it because it's very soft. If I just cut straight, you get kind of a mush. So I'm gonna roll cut it. So you can see, it starts to make an eye, like that. This would be a huge eye, maybe for a saltwater pattern. Let me cut off this other end. Okay, so that's what it's gonna look like. So I think you can start to see how you get different size eyes. If I wanted an eye this big, I would stop here. If I want smaller eyes, I'm gonna roll it out a little bit. I want smaller eyes because I don't tie for ocean fishing. Maybe when I retire. Again, try to keep it really even. It's very easy to do this where you get big lumps where you're in between your fingers. It takes a little practice to get good. So once it's slightly past where it's easy to roll all of it, it's a good idea to cut it in half. And then we'll roll some more. As it gets thinner, it's a little more challenging to keep thickness consistent all the way through. You can take a sheet of hard plastic or a small box and lightly roll it to make it more even so that there's even pressure. So when you get it close to how you want it, if you are a perfectionist, something like a box would help you roll it out very evenly. I'm not a perfectionist, but that seems pretty good to me. So I would like some of my flies to have this size eye, so I'm going to cut it right there and stop. But I want some of them to have an even smaller eye. That way I can glue these on even very small flies. That's the beauty of it. You can get any size you want. Okay, I like that. All right, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna bake these in the oven. As I said, it's a thermoset polymer acrylic. All the manufacturers will have their recommendations. Sculpey 3 bakes at 275 degrees for 15 minutes. And that assumes a 1/4 inch thickness. Some of mine's a little smaller than a 1/4 inch, so I might go a little less time. So to put them in the oven, you just need to put them on a cookie sheet. So really any cookie sheet will do. I have this older single layer one. So I'll lay it flat on there. At this size eye. And this size eye. All right, let's bake them in the oven. Okay, now it's time for the magic. 15 minutes in the oven and they're ready to cut. I recommend you cut them while they're still warm. When they get cool, they get a little crunchy. So, see, I cut the end of that one off. And you can cut them real thin, like that. See what I'm doing there? Just cutting the little tips off, making little eyeballs. Hard to see, I don't know. But it makes a little eyeball. All right. So with this little one, something else you can do is cut them a little bigger. Say like that. Now you have a lightweight dumbbell eye. Like that, about that wide. You just tie that down and it makes a perfect eye. So you can cut those thick, you can cut them thin, you can cut them, as long as it's still warm, you can cut them almost paper thin. Once it gets cool, it's kind of crunchy to cut. Cut some of these fat ones so you can see how they look. So if I were making some great big flies, these would be the eyes I could stick on there. You can make those in any color you want, yellow ones, red ones. You can even use more than just a wrap of white. You can use multiple colors around there and get a multicolored eye, whatever suits you. And I'll cut a few of these. Just a small amount of clay. I'm going to get an awful lot of eyes out of this one little piece. So there you have it. Make your own glue-on eyes.